Thank you for joining the session today, and I hope you enjoy this presentation. Though it's not safe to travel at this time, it doesn't hurt to dream and plan for the future. Before we start, there are a few housekeeping items. If you have any questions, click on the orange arrow on the control panel on the side of the screen. There's a question box for any questions you may have. Any questions will be answered at the end of the presentation. And if we do not have time to answer them, we will answer them by email. It's best to watch the presentation in a full screen mode to maximize your enjoyment, and this presentation is approximately 30 minutes long. My name is Trish McPherson. I'm located in the Halifax office on Yonge and Roby. I have been in the travel industry for 33 years and fortunate enough to have been with CAA for 24 of those years. I have had the pleasure of traveling on a G Adventures holiday. It was a wonderful experience and truly memorable. Meeting the local people, trying different cuisine, and embracing the culture. So I'm very excited for this presentation as the Galapagos is my #1 destination on my bucket list. So I would love to introduce Marilyn Long from our Charlottetown office to say a few words.
Thank you, Trish. My name is Marilyn Long, and I am the Travel Center Manager here at the CAA branch in Charlottetown. My travel career began in 1979, and in this June, I will celebrate 20 years with CAA Atlantic. G Adventures offer many exciting adventure tours all over the world. It is not surprising that G Adventure clients are searching for their next adventure as soon as they arrive back home. I was very disappointed this past May when my first trip with G Adventures to the Galapagos was canceled. My trip may have been canceled, but my dream continues, and I know someday soon I will get to meet my tortoise friends. I'd now like to introduce you to Gary Armstrong from G Adventures. Although Gary Armstrong was born in the UK, most of his formative years were spent traveling the world, visiting and living in the countries his parents were working in. These include Gabon, Holland, Brunei, Russia, and Nigeria. In 2008, Gary settled in Alberta, welcome to Canada, and in 2015, he became G Adventures GPS, the global purpose specialist for that region. In December 2019, Gary moved to Ontario to continue in his current role. Gary has a passion to inspire people to see the world and embrace those things that make people and culture different, as variety and complexity enrich our global society. Welcome, Gary.
Thank you so much. Great, and welcome to everybody who is joining us this evening. Thank you so much for spending some of your day or some of your evening with us to travel to the Galapagos Islands. So over the course of the next 15 or 20 minutes, what I'll do is introduce you all to the Galapagos Islands. I had the great good fortune to travel there in, I think it was May of 2018. I'll talk about the different ways that you can travel to the islands with G Adventures. So I'll talk about our ships as well as some of our land itineraries. We'll have the chance to meet one of our Galapagos CEOs, our Chief Experience Officers. So one of the local naturalist guides who escorts our groups through those regions. And then I'll talk a little bit at the end about our travel with confidence policy and the health and safety measures that G Adventures is putting in place on all of our trips to ensure that we are mitigating the risk of transmission of COVID-19 on all of our trips all over the world. So thank you so much for the introductions. Thank you so much for joining me. And without further ado, I think it is time for us all to travel to the Galapagos Islands. So when CAA approached me, I jumped at the opportunity to talk about this destination. It is a place on the planet like no other. The wildlife, the fauna, the flora, the warm water, the sunshine. It's a beautiful destination to visit. And when I first started at G Adventures on my first day, I had some training with our marine team, and they were, talking to me about the various different marine itineraries we have, and started speaking to the Galapagos Islands. And prior to that, I'd never imagined, even with all the different places that I'd lived, that you can just get on a plane and you can go and visit this region and see what Darwin saw and marvel at the wildlife there. And so since that day, it was at the very top of my list of destinations to visit. So straight away, as soon as I had the chance, I traveled to the islands. One of the many great things about the Galapagos Islands is there really is no bad time to visit. So if you'd like this infographic, reach out to your CAA travel counselor, and they'll be able to make sure that they send this to you. It's really just a breakdown of the different water temperatures and different life cycles of the various animals. As you can see from the map, the graphics there for each of the islands themselves, we break down into central, west, east, south, and north. The graphics on those islands don't really represent accurately the animals there, but they do convey the idea that no matter where you are on any of these islands, you are going to have the chance to marvel at some really, truly spectacular animals and enjoy learning about their habitats and how they were either endemic to the species, how they evolved in that area, or how they migrate through with different migration patterns. So
Gary, we're not seeing your slideshow.
Oh, okay, then I will go back and see if I can hit the sharing again. Let's take a look. How's that?
Perfect.
You back? Okay, great. Technical difficulties, wonderful. We're over. This is that wonderful graphic that I was speaking to. The idea of the islands being broken down into different regions. And so when you're looking at our vessels, or if you're looking at the land itineraries, you'll be able to see, if you're traveling into the central islands, which is where the airports are, if you're heading down to the southern islands like Floriana and Espanola, or if you're heading west to Isabela and Fernandina. East is San Cristobal, and the northern island, Genovesa, is better known as Birders Island. And so if you're an avid birder and want to see as many different varieties of avian as possible, then Genovesa is the place to make sure is included on the trip that you're looking at. Overall, the Galapagos Islands themselves are relatively close together. It's not a long journey time between any of them, either by speedboat or if you're on one of our vessels and are traveling through the day or into the early evening. And every single island has a broad range of different wildlife there. Those species that are endemic to the islands, like the sea lions, like the blue-footed boobies, like the certain types of giant tortoise, where each island has its own specific species of giant tortoise because they don't travel from island to island. You'll be able to see all of these different types of wildlife, especially in the water as well. You'll see the Galapagos sharks if you're lucky. Had an encounter with the Galapagos shark while we were there. They don't eat people. There's also the chance to see penguins in the water, the sea lions, both on the beach and in the water. It really is a fantastic wildlife viewing experience like nowhere else in the world. So you do need to make sure you're staying at least 2 meters away from the animals. But it's interesting that the wildlife just doesn't care that you're there. They are completely habituated to humans. We're not a predator for them, and so they will not mind your presence. But to respect their life cycles and make sure that we're not interacting with them in a negative way or having any unintended negative consequences on our interactions with that wildlife, we do make sure that we're 2 meters back. But you definitely want to take a good camera so you can get some amazing shots of all the animals while you're there, both on the land and in the water. So it doesn't matter what type of G-Adventures trip you're doing in the region, there is lots of time to snorkel. If you're on our vessels, the snorkeling equipment is included. We'll offer you wetsuits as well, or depending on the time of year. And so you'll have that chance to get off the vessel. If you're doing a land trip, it's the same. We have lots of opportunity to snorkel. We provide all of the equipment, and you just walk in from the beach. And so even if you're not that strong a swimmer, it is a fantastic place to get into the water and to see the wildlife, because it's very calm. You don't have a lot of rough days in the islands. And I've even heard a lot of stories of people learning how to swim while on our trips, just so they could really get to see the different sea creatures in their natural habitat. And so there is the opportunity while you're there to spend time on the land as well, to learn about the wildlife endemic to the regions on the islands, to learn about the geology that shaped this unique region of the world and created an environment that allowed for the diversification of all these different types of animals that led to, the understanding of evolution for us as a species and a society. And so again, on all of our trips, there's going to be time on the land with your certified naturalist guide who's going to be pointing things out, explaining about the wildlife, explaining about the geology, and then also time in the water to enjoy, all of the creatures that are there as well. So there's two different ways of seeing the Galapagos Islands with G Adventures. And the best way to get a robust argument or discussion going on between two people at G is to ask the question, which is better, to see the islands on a vessel or to see them on the land? Ultimately, we have three different ships that we operate in the Galapagos. There's the Eden, which is the most cost-effective way of seeing the islands with us. It's a small ship. All of our ships are small ships. They max at 16 passengers. They are very comfortable inside. The food is amazing. The coffee is even better. And on the Eden, we have both bunk beds as well as the opportunity to bunk as two single beds as well. And then we also have the Yolita. So the Yolita is an upgraded vessel for us in the region. It's a little bit larger. It's a little bit more comfortable. On all of these vessels, you'll see on the top decks, those are open and you have a lot of communal space at the top, as well as the gangways around the outside and at the rear of the vessel. Areas where you can kind of sit outside and enjoy the weather. The Yolita, we do have the opportunity for people to stay in queen beds there as well, and we also have twin stays. And finally, we have the Reina Silver Voyager. So I don't actually have images of the vessel because it is brand new. So it's been custom built for us. It's being launched this summer. It's a catamaran. So it gives you a little bit more stability than those other vessels. It's also wider and larger. And so we still have a maximum of 16 passengers on this vessel. There are 2 solo cabins as well for those travelers looking to travel solo on a trip. And it's just, because it's brand new and built to our specifications, it's just going to be a little bit more comfortable. There's a jacuzzi on board. And with all of our different trips, you have your certified naturalist guides who are traveling with you through the islands. And you can see a couple of the different itineraries there of the different islands where it visits. I like speaking to this vessel because it just does head to Fernandina in the far west, which is the newest, it's the youngest of the islands, and Northern Isabella. And those are places that aren't often visited by a lot of the different operators in the region. So it's a little bit special and a little bit different because you get that chance to visit those islands. And if you're looking for a flightless cormorant, then the only place you can see that particular animal is going to be on Fernandina and on the northern tip of Isabella. But that's, I digress. But ultimately, all of the vessels are comfortable. This vessel is brand new. And because of the fact it's a catamaran, it's a little bit wider. We do have land-based itineraries in the region. And as I said, the best way to get a robust discussion is to speak about which is a better way. When you're on a vessel, the trip cost more is included in the price because all of your meals are included on board. And then you have that chance to just unpack once. If you're traveling on a land itinerary, you're moving from island to island via speedboat. And so on all of these trips, I would recommend taking seasickness pills. It is better to have them and not need them. I was on one of our vessels with my family. I took the seasickness pills and didn't need them. It was very calm the whole time we were there. But for both, I'd recommend having them. And then with this, the trip cost is slightly less, but there's less meals included. And so it gives you that chance to explore the islands themselves, the towns that you're in, and kind of interact more with the people in that destination as well, and learn what life is like for people on the islands versus staying in your ship each night. You'll see from the map in the top right-hand corner there, you're traveling between the islands. With the multi-sport itinerary, it is an active trip. So you've got kayaking, you've got some cycling on Isabella. And so as an active trip, it's on sale right now until the end of the month. We've got 15% off those active trips for departures up until the end of June next year. So like I said, the great thing about the islands is there's no bad time to visit. And I was there in May, so I can recommend the spring as well. We do have classic itineraries in the region, so our classic travel style. Again, staying in hotels as you're traveling through the region. the chance to visit Floriana Island on each of these trips, and you'll notice that our G for Good projects are there. So in partnership with our nonprofit organization Planetera, we worked with the people of Floriana to set up a community homestay there. So you have the chance to visit and learn from the 150 people on the island what it's like to live on that island. Both the Galapagos island hopping with Quito, as well as the upgraded Land Galapagos itinerary, where we upgrade the hotels a little bit as you travel through the region. Both of these trips are Jane Goodall collection trips. So parts of the proceeds from these itineraries will go to support the Jane Goodall Institute and the Roots and Shoots program. And again, the best source of more information for each of these itineraries and the difference between travel styles, more information on the Jane Goodall collection and our partnership with her organization, more information on G for Good is the best place to get that information is going to be your local travel advisor at CAA. And then finally, what I wanted to do is show a quick video as well, because it's great for me to speak to the islands and talk about the wildlife and tell some anecdotes about my trip. But ultimately, there's no better person to hear it from than one of our local CEOs, one of our local guides in the region. And so I also have this fun picture of this guy in here to remind me that, yes, this is the time that I need to go ahead and show the video. And so I'll let our CEO kind of introduce you to the region as well.
I like that. I mean, Galapagos is one of the most beautiful places. I was born in Puerto Ayora, Santa Cruz, so I'm very happy teaching people about the Galapagos, about the endemic species. Try to enjoy the time, bring energy. That's one of the things I say all the time. G Adventure, believe me, I want to be 100% honest. My second family. Okay, just imagine when the people arrive to the Galapagos, everybody very happy because they want to learn a lot. I like the first day. Oh yeah, Willow, yeah. And then immediately I ask, are you ready for the sea lions? Are you ready for this? Are you ready for that? Yeah. So I like the first day. The first day, so everybody, I like the energy. I always say to my passengers, this week, fish, fresh fish. Next week, after this trip, you can eat chicken, you can eat meat, But this week, fresh fish. See the fish, you see? And then you can eat fish on the boat. My mission is to keep these people happy all the time. So we have to be different. If we do the right things every day, you can grow as a person. Because you say, bye, my friend. So it's, that person is special. I like that, believe me. I feel very happy here, special here.
So I often say that at G Adventures, there's a lot of really wonderful people that work at G at our organization, but ultimately the best people at G Adventures are our CEOs, our guides. They, they're so giving of themselves. They are local people from the local place, and so are your best resource and the best people to be speaking about the wildlife in this case and the nature of the islands, and really they are just showing our travelers their backyard. And so I hope through the course of the presentation, I've piqued your interest on going to the Enchanted Isles. I wanted to finish with a quick discussion about the travel with confidence policies that G Adventures has in place as an organization. Obviously, right now is a different time. We're in the middle of a global pandemic. And so it is extremely important for G Adventures to ensure we are putting in place protocols and procedures that help to mitigate the risk of transmission of COVID-19. And it's critically important for the health and safety of our travelers, but it's also critically important for the health and safety of the people in the destination where you're visiting. We are very fortunate in Canada. We have an extremely robust healthcare system, many of the destinations where we travel to as a company are more rural, they are more remote, and they do not necessarily have the same health infrastructure that we enjoy here. And so we take this responsibility extremely seriously. There is a lot that we are doing, requesting that travelers have a negative PCR test prior to travel, even if the destination doesn't require it, asking that you fill in the health form before you travel. When you arrive, our CEOs have always helped to set expectations, help people overcome that culture shock if it's there. And what we're doing is adding on, it's an additive process. And so they'll be able to talk more about the local, national, international guidelines, the G-Adventures protocols that are in place to make sure that we're keeping everybody safe. And it's the things that we're already doing at home, right? It's common sense. So making sure that we're physically distancing when physical distancing is possible, making sure that we're wearing masks when physical distancing isn't possible, and that we're engaging in increased hand hygiene and those kinds of things. And before you leave the trip, we're also working with partners on the ground to make sure we can get you those PCR tests before you travel back to Canada, again, to ensure that we meet the entrance requirements to coming back to Canada, and also even after that, making sure that those travelers who would like a PCR test have that opportunity. We do operate small groups at G. This gives us a lot of benefits. We're not having to completely reinvent our business model to meet the challenge and the needs of this current global pandemic. The vessels that we operate, max at 16. The land groups that we operate, max at 16. Often there is a smaller number of travelers traveling. And so you also have that ability to have the CEO make sure that we are remembering to do all of these things, that they're ensuring that everybody is following these rules and guidelines. As I mentioned, not just to keep our travelers safe, but to keep the people in the local destination safe as well. Ultimately, we can't predict the future. And so we do have more flexible terms and conditions when it comes to booking trips with G. So, you can cancel and rebook your trip up to 30 days prior to departure. And we'll be rolling that out and kind of looking at this on an ongoing basis as well. Fully believe that, once we get into travelers traveling into 2022, we'll also be having this 30-day cancel and rebook policy as well. And then, we have our lifetime deposits. So it's $350 to hold your space on a future G Adventures trip. It's non-refundable, but it is 100% transferable, and it is good for life. So again, something we've had in place for a very long time. Things happen in life. There are reasons why travelers may want to change the dates of their trip. So prior to final payment, prior to 60 days out, you can cancel and keep that lifetime deposit as a credit with G Adventures for life, or you can transfer it to a family member or a friend so that you can take that future G Adventures trip at another time. I've mentioned it a couple times. I really want to thank CAA for the opportunity to speak to you this evening. At G Adventures, we believe that travel and tourism can be a force for good, that simply by going on a trip, you can have a positive impact, that more of the money that you spend with us should stay in the local economy and lead to positive outcomes for the people in those places. We support local businesses as an organization, and as a traveler, that can start by working with your local travel professional to get more information about these trips, to take advantage of their experience and expertise now more than ever when talking about entry requirements to destinations, when talking about flights, when talking about insurance. These are all really important conversations that your local travel agent can help with. And so again, I want to thank everybody for traveling to the Galapagos with us this evening. And if you have any questions, then now is the time to pop them into that chat box, into the question panel. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that anybody has about our vessels, about our land itineraries, about travel in the current climate, all and any of the above.
Thank you, Gary. That was amazing, and I'm even more excited about going to the Galapagos now. If anyone is interested in any more upcoming virtual events, please visit our CAA website. I would like to thank Gary again from G Adventures and Marilyn, and everyone who's attended this presentation, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening.
I do see one
you.
question here.
Oh, good.
It's from Michael, and he's asking how long a flight is it from Quito to the islands?
Yeah, that's a great question. So on some of our itineraries, you start in Quito, and we include an early morning flight. So you get up early and have breakfast. We use the Hilton Hotel in downtown Quito. It is a locally owned business. And the flight itself is an hour and 45 minutes. Often those flights will stop in Guayaquil. So you'll board the plane, you fly in, you go up, you go down, you land in Guayaquil. More passengers get on and some passengers get off, and then you're up and into the islands. And it's, yeah, even with that stop, you're looking at an hour and a half to 2 hours.
Perfect. And I see another question as well. Is there a place to stay on the islands other than the ship?
If you're on one of our vessels, then you'll be on the vessels for the duration of your adventures trip. With some of our itineraries, we do start and end in the islands. And so if you wanted to extend and spend some more time in a hotel while you're there, then again, definitely really important to work with a travel agent for that. Also, even with the trips that include the flights to and from Quito, if you let us know in advance, if you let your travel agent know in advance, then we can actually push that flight. So on the trip I was on, we were on the vessel for 7 days, 10-day trip, you know, a day in Quito, and then the flights in, 7 days in the islands, and a flight back. And there was a couple on board who had pushed their return flight by, I think, 3 or 4 days, just so they could spend some time traveling through the islands. And I think they were working with a dive shop as well to do some diving while they were there as well, because diving isn't part of any G Adventures itineraries. So absolutely, there is every option open to you under the sun. And as an organization, we'll also, you know, you push the return flight if you are including those flights. And if you are looking to spend more time in the islands, then yeah, definitely working with an agent is going to be your best bet. The one thing I did want to mention as well, because in the video it's mentioned, if you do have dietary requirements, please do let us know. Even on our vessels, if you have allergies to seafood, if you're not a fan of seafood, then we can make sure there are other options. And when I traveled through the region, there was one day where the chef cooked an entire turkey. I mean, there was 16 of us on board, and we ate an entire turkey. But I know that the galley is not very large, and so I don't know where he pulled this turkey out of. But it's not just fish that we're serving all the time, but there is a lot of it, and it is delicious. There will be another option each meal, and if you have dietary requirements whereby you are allergic to shellfish, then fear not. We want to make sure that we're meeting those requirements as well. And again, that's for all G Adventures trips, not just the sailing trips. But particularly for those sailing trips, it's actually easier for us because we just get different provisions on board prior to sail. So then, you know, we can make sure that you're accommodated for. Great. Yay. I don't know if there are no more questions. Yeah, I could just keep talking about the Galapagos. I love revisiting. I was talking to my brother because he came with me when we went traveling there, and he phrased it to me as the best vacation he's ever had in his life. Like just 100% relaxing. I mean, there's kind of Wi-Fi some of the time and cell phone reception, but you are definitely given that opportunity to disconnect. And it's just, you know, it's time in the water, swimming, you know, looking at the wildlife, and just it's one of those trips where you really don't need a vacation after your vacation. You are fully relaxed on the way back. And I'd highly recommend doing a bit of research before you travel as well, because that's going to give you that chance to really ask those fine and in-depth questions of our CEOs about certain types of animals and wildlife. There's a host of books I can recommend, documentaries on the islands. It really helps to build that excitement, particularly right now where, you know, we're not traveling anywhere, to be able to book that trip in the future and then start planning and reading and getting excited for that future journey. I think it's always been part of travel, but even more so now where we know that we're really not going anywhere in the short term, to it gives you that time to to research and learn more about the place before you choose to visit.
Excellent. Thank you so much again, Gary. That was excellent. And I don't know if there's any more questions. No, I guess not. Thank you again, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.
Good night.